What's up, guys? Bones88 here, and we're doing a top 10 most underrated characters in Dragon Champions. And with me today is my very good friend, ItsDizz. Diz, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Me and Diz have been talking a lot lately. We've got to know each other the last few weeks, and yeah, Diz really knows the stuff, and I'm glad to have you on here, brother.
Well, I appreciate it, man. You and Zeri really kind of really got me into this, into the game. And like I said, I played it before. Back when the game first came out, and then I lost my account, and I just recently got back into it. So,
well, I'm glad you're here, buddy, and it's been good. It's been good getting to know you. So, hopefully, we can get you doing some content sometime too.
yeah, I used to do it. I used to have a channel. I actually showed you that, actually.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we got to get you back up and going, though, brother.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, you ready to do this?
Oh, yeah, man. So, my pick, I know a lot of people know the character is pretty good, like early to mid. Everyone says he's trash late game, but I have to go with Mar. The reason why I go with Mar is because later in the game, I feel like he just gets outshined by all the other works. And especially with Garn coming out, he's definitely going to get outshined by Garn. And, you just have you have more Doom, you have Hard Orc, you have Zera, how you have all these other ones. And I feel like Mar just kind of falls underneath all the other orcs.
And yeah, I agree, man. But, I give you a lot of crap for it, but he's a great character. I just like to give you shit about it. But he is a great character. It's just he, unfortunately, like you just said, once you get all of the orcs, he's in the very back, But it doesn't make him a bad character. From the beginning to the mid game, he's great.
Oh yeah.
His AoEs and his damage. Unfortunately, it just takes him a long time to get that going. And as weak as he is, he kind of dies before he gets anything going. Now,
I think the problem, and I didn't mean to interrupt you there, I think the biggest problem is actually his passive. Like, could you imagine if his passive was kind of like how Shaolin's passive is? That's just my opinion on it, but
no, I agree. It's kind of it's not that great. I agree, man. And it deals 1% more damage for every 1% of his missing health. So you want to do it when he's low on health, but you almost don't get that off. Now, I've never used a Gear 12, Gear 13 Mar. So I could be talking crap on him, and he might be amazing at Gear 13. But you'd really have to mod him for high damage or high crit chance and damage. I don't know. How do you like to mod him?
Honestly, I think a lot of people miscalculate the crit chance because people are like, oh, you need like 60-70%. Well, you're forgetting when he pops a steroid, the buff itself gives you 30% crit chance. So you only really need, because you're only going to do his combo when he has his buff up. You're not going to spin, So you only need like 40-50%, and then you could just stack damage and crit damage.
Right.
And so if you could get that as high as possible, I like my goal is like 250 with artifact max, obviously, but I honestly think he has a good kit. It's just he lacks speed, and he's one trick pony, unfortunately, but doesn't make him a bad character for being a one trick pony. So
for sure. And in case you guys don't know, this is Dizz's guy. This is his favorite. We all have our favorite. So this is his man. So no one roast him in the comments or anything. Real quick before we go on, I just want to mention his AoE. It does 230% physical damage. It's not a lot, but if the ability deals 4 critical hits, it cools down instantly. That might be a little outdated now, but in the beginning game, mid game, that's still pretty cool. If you can get that crit chance on him and he's hitting critical hits, you can keep hitting him with that AoE and it'll make a difference, especially beginning game.
Well, even right now, like I think I was telling you before, I was like top 10 in arena for a while, just because of him. Like, if I survived past like round 2 or 3, he would just kill the whole team.
That's cool. And maybe I'm being too hard on him. That might be because I don't have a lot of experience because I haven't messed with him in a long time. since I was playing it back in the day, or I play it still, but since I was working on my orcs for the Soleus event, like that's the last time I've really messed with him. So I'll give him some love here down the road, and we'll see how he does, because you could always use him for a plug and play somewhere on a Zera or a Rantha team. So.
Oh, I agree, 100%.
All right, man. Anything else you want to say about him?
No, I think we covered pretty much his whole thing.
All right, guys. Well, that's Mar for you. All right. So number 9, we have the human healer Selena. Selena's pretty cool. She's definitely underrated. No one talks about her, I don't think, ever. I think it's just because maybe there's other tunes that you want to use first. I'm not sure why no one talks about her a lot, but her kit's really, really cool. She has this ability to take all the debuffs on your team and flip them into buffs. So that's pretty unique to this game. There might be someone else that does that, but I don't think so. Is there?
I don't believe so. Not the whole flipping mechanic. I honestly think the reason why she's so underrated is because Soleus is just so strong. Like he's just when you think of healer for humans, you don't think of Selena. You think of Soleus automatically. I think that's the problem. Is Soleus was just so strong, and then her kit just got that rework, and I think people are just sleeping on her.
And yeah, so I'm gonna read her Amos's mirror real quick. It heals all allies by 500% of Selena's magic damage. That's quite a bit of percentage. Well, okay, we're looking at level 8. Let's go back to level 6. So she's dealing 400%, which isn't bad either. And if allies are afflicted by debuffs, she applies 2 random opposite buffs for the same duration. And if you take her up to 7, she removes more random debuffs, and she does more healing. So that's a pretty good T7 too. So that's the one we were talking about, and that's a pretty cool little move that she does.
I think with the lack of dispellers in the game, I think she just has that hard spot, that no one's really utilized yet. Yeah. Because there's so many debuffs that are just flying around, and everyone's leveling up the meta characters like Bar and Rill and all the big meta characters.
Yeah.
I think people are just sleeping on her. I think if someone actually took the time and geared her to gear 12 or gear 13, she would absolutely destroy a lot of these meta teams.
I totally agree, man. And another thing is, on her passive ability, she removes 2 random buffs from an enemy at the end of the turn and applies them to random allies for the same duration. That's awesome. That's every turn. That's just as huge as the other move. And she also, at level 7, she's applying Cheat Death, and instead if removes taunt or invisibility. So that is crazy. And she had a rework. Before she got reworked, she wasn't as good. It's because she was copying taunt and putting them on people you didn't want taunt to be on, and that was a big problem. But they reworked that, and she's so much better now. Definitely. Oh yeah. Definitely underrated, man. Definitely.
That's probably another reason why people sleep on her, is because they remember the old kit and they're like, oh, she's awful, and then she got reworked and nobody still plays with her. Totally. Because like I said, Soleus is just so strong. It's just, I still think if somebody took the effort and geared her up, she would wreck a lot of these meta teams.
Totally, man. But she doesn't have to be on a human team, does she?
Because she's so plug and play. You could put her with anything,
which increases her viability even more. If you can plug and play somebody, that's huge.
The combo that I think, which is another character we'll end up talking about eventually in this, is the combo I think is Darian. You combo well with Darian, with his leadership, and it's just constantly debuffs are just getting removed.
For sure. And I've messed around with her and Darian, and she's great with him too. So, and that is the wonderful Selena. Okay, so number 8, we have the beautiful panda Shaolin. Diz, what do you think about Shaolin?
Well, Shaolin, when he first came out, was awful.
Yep, I do remember that, man. He was really bad.
He was not a good... No, he was good for raids, but if you put him anywhere else, he was just bad. They reworked him, and his rework is absolutely insane. I think people sleep on him and think he's still only raid viable, but you've experienced it yourself where he just literally would kill your entire team.
It's nuts. And the reason I have him so low on my like roster, I haven't put any love into him. Well, first of all, there's just so much other stuff I got to worry about. But when I started the game, you said it, he was trash, and I still kind of had that in the back of my mind as thinking he's kind of trash, even though I know he's not anymore. And it's just taken me forever to get to him. But yeah, man, like real quick, I want to go over just his passive alone. The damage he deals is nuts. And if you're starting the game out, I would farm him instead of like a couple others. But his passive, he's dealing 1% more damage for every 2% of his health that he has, an additional 25% if he's at full health. Now that won't happen very often, but if you have protection, and you still have your health, you're still doing 25% more health.
So what a lot of people forget, though, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, is with Kulai getting added, and she does her heal right off the bat, that's a damage increase. And then he does his next turn, and he does that 7 attack. Well, that thing actually hits like a truck.
Yeah.
On top of this passive plus the damage increase. Oh my gosh!
Well, I mean, he's hitting you 7 times, 7 times. Now, does that hit every time, or can you miss a few times?
Well, no, you can still miss like one of the attacks because it's random to wherever it hits. But if there's less enemies on the field, that's more chances it's going to hit the same target, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So, and it's also going to help you defeat the dragon in raids too.
But even his 2 is being slept on. His 2 is so strong. It applies regen to 4 allies, and I believe, if I'm correct, it gives self-control, which self-control is actually a really slept on buff.
Yes.
And
yes,
I believe it gives 45% turn meter, which is absolutely crazy.
That's a lot of turn meter for sure.
Yeah, for the entire team, that's a lot of turn meter.
And like you were saying, imagine putting Kulai with him. Well, she's getting crazy turn meter already, and then you have Shaolin feeding turn meter to her. She's feeding attack up to him. Like they're an unspoken pretty good synergy together. So
and if you have a HDRT lead, the regions also apply to his passive.
That's true. That is true.
So I'm telling you, man, he's really slept on. Everyone, like all the other pandas, are pretty decent. Besides, I guess Hilda is really reliant on Uncle Ho, and we're not going to really talk about her kid. Like, I don't even know why she has synergy with Snorri. It doesn't make any sense, but
Yeah. But yeah, I agree, man. Even I'm sleeping on him. You know what I mean? So he is very, very slept on, and a huge, damage dealing guy, giving out regens, giving out turn meter. That's nuts. Anyone who does that is a good character. And I'm reading his basic too, and if the target's health is above 50%, he recovers 15% health. So he's recovering health when he's using his basic for the most part. So that's pretty cool too. That's
without any life though or anything. That's just a flat out 15% no matter what.
Yeah, so that's pretty big for a basic.
His rework is absolutely insane. I think people are extremely sleeping on him.
Yeah, so if you're starting out, it doesn't even matter where you're at in the game. Put this guy up and he will make your pandas do even better. And there's so many pandas that do so many different things that if you have 2 panda comps, that's pretty good. Like, you can use both panda comps on defense, on offense, and battlegrounds, or anything, because there's not very many pandas that aren't very good. Like, Ren's the only one I can think of that's kind of trash.
And I think I made a comment not too long ago when y'all were doing your stream about like how pandas have the most flexibility with their comps.
I agree.
There's so many good characters in pandas that utilize each other so well. They're literally the most flexible, man.
I agree, man. Anything else you got to say about old Shao?
No, I think that's it. I think we covered it, man.
All right, guys, that's Shaolin. All right, at number 7, we have the man, the tiger, Raval. Raval he's kind of like in the middle for me, but he's definitely underrated.
But how the great has fallen, though. Do you remember when the game first came out? Everybody was like, "You got to get Raval. You got to get Raval." He just wrecks everybody, and now everyone's all like, "Raval."
Yeah, but like now that Ness is out, and you kind of want her to be your main Pride leader now. So you have a bunch of these other like Pride members not being used, and if you're putting Salvador with Nessa, Hera's kind of useless until they get another Pride tank. She's kind of useless, and if Sal's in with Nessa, I kind of like using Revol lead, and so his viability has kind of went up for me personally since Nessa's came out. But that's not the main reason why I think he's the most underrated. But that kind of helps his viability. The reason why I think he's underrated because he's the leader to the bleed team. And without Revol, you have 0 bleed team. You have bleeds going out, but you don't have the damage done to your enemies without Revol. Because here we'll show this off. Now he did get a rework, and some people say it's a nerf. I haven't noticed much of a difference if you're using him for the bleed team. But some people hated it. It didn't really bother me. But so you have a bleed team, Revol lead. You can use a lot of people, but you want to use people that have mass bleeds, like Snorri, like Bar and Rel. Now we have Garn. So that's the kind of people you'd want to put in this, putting out all those bleeds. And the more bleeds that are out there, the more damage Revol does when he does his A2. And the A2 deals 290% physical damage to all enemies and an additional 25% of physical damage for each effect of bleeding out on the enemies. So you can have all kinds of bleeding stacked up, and the more bleeds you have stacked up, the more bleeds you have out on people. He's going to do crazy damage, and he can wipe out a lot of teams with one hit. He's not the best team, but he's such a great, underrated team when it comes to bleed, and without that team, you need Revol.
I agree, man. I think the thing that confuses me a little bit is why they haven't introduced a new character that does bleeds to coincide with Revol. Because you really can't utilize his AoE without other factions providing that. Which, to me, doesn't make any sense. It's like a Vorian, right? Mm-hmm. Like how Vorian just lacked so much because there really wasn't that much poisons for the Pride, and now that Nessus came out, Vorian's actually rose up in the rankings. It's kind of crazy, man. Like why they haven't released a new bleed character, but maybe that's down the line. I think that would really help Revol, but I do agree that Revol's only good spot is with the bleed team. I don't think it's with Pride.
I don't either. I just like when I first said that. I just think you could do that because I like his leadership. Let me read it real quick. All allies from the Pride gain 30% maximum health and a 50% chance to restore 1 turn to a random ability. I mean, you're only getting a 50% chance, but if RNG goes in your favor, that can really turn the tide of a battle pretty quickly. Is it the best leadership? No, but it can be helpful. There's a lot worse leaderships out there, and restoring a random ability is pretty cool. And of course, you're making your Pride a little bit better. But I agree, it's not where you really want him to be used. You want him in the bleed team. Now, I have a question for you. Do you think the developers mean for him to be in a bleed team, or do you think they want you to use him in a Pride team?
I think the bleed team was a happy accident. I don't think so too. I don't think they were expecting people to be like, oh, bleeds, let's combine bleeds from different things and put it together. Because when the game first came out, the whole combo was Freezard and Snorri. There was no, let's throw Revol in there. There was none of that.
Yeah,
it was always Freezard and Snorri, and then people were like, oh, well, let's do this, and this, and let's see what happens. And then people realized that Revol was actually pretty crazy when they were actually throwing bleeds together.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it was an accident. I like it. It's one of my favorite Battlegrounds teams. It's just so fun wiping people out.
I think he's a great character. I think he does a ton of damage. And I think early on in the game, if a new player was looking to pick up a Pride, I don't think he would be a bad pickup. He does fall off pretty hard late game if you're not putting him with a bleed team, but I don't think there's no falter for picking him up and investing into him.
Alright, that's about it for Revol. Let's move on. So at number 6, we have the OG Darian. What do you think about Darian, man?
I think Darian was like the Dragon's Champion meme. Look, when the game first came out, if you were leveling up Darian, you were actually trolling.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
And now that the game has progressed, Darian is actually insanely good character.
Completely agree.
And people just don't understand, and especially with this tier 7 and tier 8 coming, he's gonna be a monster. Like, he's gonna be so hard to kill. Like I said, I feel like he's so underrated now. But like back when the game first came out, if you were investing into him, you were wasting your time.
I agree, and I don't think he's someone you should rush out and farm, but he's so underrated. And when you get to the point of being at 12 nodes in Battleground, he's a must. He is a must, and he counters one of the best teams in Battlegrounds in Pride. I don't know if a lot of people do this. I don't know if no one does it. I just messed around one day and found this counter, and it happens about 98% of the time I win. And it's Darian lead, it's Zappy, it's Boardwind, and I think that's the only three you really need. I think you need someone like Cruel to help dispel around Salvador, but very rarely do I even get to do that. And then I throw in Naya as a fifth to kind of try to help to get around that taunt even more. That's the ones I use, but the fact that his leadership is helping me get through a Pride team, that's huge to me, and that makes him underrated just that alone. And he's a great secondary team for Battlegrounds.
People underestimate his leadership because whenever people look at leaderships, they're looking for damage increases and all crit increases and all this other stuff. 30% armor to everything, to magic and physical, is absolutely insane. On top of his armor as it is,
and
makes him so tanky.
And any leadership that applies to everyone is huge, especially when there's not a lot of leaderships in this game. It's to all allies. It's not just to the Order. It's not just to humans. It's for all allies. So that's cool right there.
And the 50% chance, the only Order thing is for the 50% chance for the debuff removal.
And that's cool too, man. Any dispel in this game is welcome, for sure.
That's why I was like, Selena and Darian are just a nasty combo. It's so hard to lock them down because they're constantly removing debuffs. And I think you don't even need to rock them with like tenacity runes if that was your plan to do that combo. I think you could go like full armor or full health or something.
That's kind of what I do, yeah.
Yeah, and I honestly think if you were planning on doing like Selena, Naya, and Darian, you would not need to do like tenacity runes on him. You can just go like full health or armor, and he would just be a monster.
I totally agree, man. So that his leadership is underrated.
I think his T7s are the big game changers.
Yeah,
for him. I think they really brought him because like his AoE and his basic are really like meh. They're not great. I really wish that they threw like some kind of, if they wanted to keep the orc theme instead of increasing the damage to orcs, I think they should have done like he has a chance to stun them, kind of like how Tromgar is, but he only does it to orcs. Like throw something in there that would just besides damage, because nobody looks at a tank and be like, oh, this is going to change the whole tide because of this damage.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
But other than that, if you want a brick wall, Darian's your man. He's going to be so hard to get around. And if you actually invest into him.
And I can't wait I'm going to gear 12 pretty soon, just for like a fun project, because he is pretty good defensively wise, but he is a little flimsier than I would like him. You know what I'm saying? So I think gear 12 would be just right for him, and I can't wait to do that.
Oh, I agree, and especially with so many leaderships that aren't in the there's not that many. You can't go wrong. Even if you wanted to gear 13 him, it won't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I would never be like, "Oh, you're stupid for that." I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm ready to do that myself." But all right, anything else you got to say about it, man?
No, I think that's it.
All right, that's Darian. All right, at number 5, we're sticking with the humans. Cruel.
She was nuts when she came out. She broke the game.
Yep.
Because back when the game first came out, it was all about Tromgar and what's her name? The demon, is it Kyra?
Kyra.
Kyra.
Yep.
That's who it was. Back then, it was all about them, and then Cruella came out, and if you copied one of them, you just won.
Yep. Yep. And she really helps you beat the more Doom event too. Like if you have her, it's simple. You can pretty much get right through it. Because if someone has a superior character, like on the other side, the enemies do, you can copy him, and now you have that character on your side. So that unique ability that no one else has makes her underrated. Like it's so fun to play. It's so awesome. And I mean, if you can get her to survive long enough, let's say there's a new character that you want to play with, but you can't because you're not whaling or whatever, you could literally copy that character and use them on your team. I mean, that's pretty fun. That's pretty cool, you know?
I think the why she fell under under the radar is because, one, how squishy she was, and two, the rise of Eric, Shieldbreaker, and Garrett. Yeah. Like after like them raising up in the ranks, everyone forgot about her, and even though she's such a game changer, I think the problem is the AI doesn't utilize her copy very well. And so she's not very good defensively, but I feel like she's really, really good as an offensive character.
I agree. And not only is Clone unique, but the way she gets around tanks are unique. And, you know, if someone's defending... Now, I always miss with it. I don't know if her accuracy sucks or what it is, but I always miss tanks with this. It doesn't happen consistently enough for me. But you use her A2, and it puts that defender under invisibility, so now you're around the taunt. You can attack whoever you want because the tank's invisible. So that right there is unique because no one else does it that way, and it's pretty cool. It'll help you on secondary teams. Like I said, I use her with Darian to get around Salvador. Then again, that doesn't work every time because Salvador's always dodging. But her clone and that ability are just very unique, and if you can get around a taunt and you can clone, that's pretty freaking awesome. And you're definitely underrated. Another thing is you don't necessarily have to use her with humans. She does great if you have a bunch of mages in the... well, let me read her passive real quick and you'll see what I'm talking about. Cruel has 50% chance to gain invisibility for all allied mages for 1 turn at the end of her turn. If there are 3 mages among allies in the battle, she gains invisibility on all the mages for 2 turns. And then she gets 10 speed for each allied mage in invisibility. So you kind of want her with a bunch of mages. That's actually kind of a lot, so it's kind of hard to do that because you need them in other teams. But if you can, you know, what do you think? What would be a good mage team?
You said you like putting her with Darian, right? Well, you can do like I'm pretty sure Selena is considered a mage.
Okay, so I can't remember who's all a mage, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Selena is considered a mage, so you can slap her with the human team, with Selena, and then you can throw another random mage in there, and that would be super annoying because you got Selena sitting there throwing up heals and removing buffs. And
what about? I said you don't necessarily need to use her with humans, but we're putting out human teams.
I know. I'm just thinking of like.
Well, I'm about to say, is Soleus and Nightiel both mages?
Yeah, they're both mages actually.
So there you go. You know, they have a good. They both, Soleus and Nightiel, have good synergy by themselves. And you put Cruella in there.
She would make that team so annoying.
So that's pretty good. And I put 2 T7s on her. The last 2 T7s I put on someone was her. So her 7s are pretty good.
I think why she also struggles too is because a lot of tanks now are stacking tenacity. The problem with the tenacity being stacked is the reason why the invisibilities it's so hard to like land. It's because you got tanks now that have like 150 to 200% tenacity. Right. So your potency has to be absolutely off the wall to be able to actually land it. And I think that's really why she's like fell off the meta. But if for a new person that's actually like investing in her,
huge.
She's gonna wreck everybody.
Yep. Yeah, she'll help you get through campaigns. She's gonna help you through all PvE content. It won't be a problem for her then. Anything else you gotta say about her, bud?
I still have nightmares from the day when she first got released. That's pretty much about it. But
she haunts my dreams every night. It's not a bad one to be haunting your dreams. She's not bad for a cartoon.
You know what's worse than one Trump guard? 2 Trumgars.
That's no kidding, man. She's still in Battlegrounds. If I don't kill her fast enough and she's under invisibility and people are taunting and you can't get it to her, she does. And you have a stacked team, she's just copying. The only thing I wish, like at a T7, that you could have more than one clone. That's the only thing
that would be so broken, though.
yeah, because if you're going against that, I would be like, why the fuck did why did I suggest this? So maybe it's not a great idea, but it would be cool. All right, guys, that's the one and only Cruel. Okay, number 4, we have Roxy. All right, man, what do you think about Roxy?
Roxy honestly fell underneath the radar hard, and that's because of Renara. I think people don't realize how strong Roxy actually is. If you combined her with Kagi and Boris, feathers are absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
I think people don't realize how strong the feathers are actually, like how strong they actually are.
Yep.
And if you can you go ahead and read the passive so I can explain why it's so strong?
Yeah, I'm going to read the passive and the actual feather move so that people can kind of get what's going on. So first of all, her passive is at the end of the turn, Roxy's getting 1 stack of feather for 2 turns. Allies with at least 1 stack of feather gain 1 random buff. Kagi and Boreas gain 2 random buffs. So if you have them in there, that's even better. Kagi and Boreas. So the possible buffs are just a crap load. Haste, potency increase, like a bunch of them. And they last 2 turns. So that is huge. That is awesome. So you want to spread these feathers as much as you can around to your team. And so her A3, the targeted ally gains 5 stacks of those feathers for 2 turns. If Kagi's an ally, he gets 5 extras. If Boreas is an ally, he gets 5 extras. And each stack of feather is reducing incoming damage by 5%.
So with Kagi and Boris in the same party as her, that's 15 feathers. And you said 1 stack of feathers is 5%, right? So like 1, that's like 75% damage reduction on 1 target. You slap that on Salvador, he's already taken no damage from like Still Shell.
He's invincible pretty much.
Yeah, he's literally invincible. You can't kill him because you start off at the very beginning of the game. It's basically having Still Shell on him.
Yep.
You're not doing any damage, and then God forbid if he does pop Still Shell.
Yeah.
The feathers are so good because whenever you spread it throughout the team, it reduces AoE damage on everyone. It's so good. She's so good, and people just Renara just really took over, and people just fell asleep on her, man.
Yeah,
she's so good, and I can't explain that enough.
And I think the reason that is because of the revivability with Renara. If you took away the revivability, I think Roxy's the better healer.
I still think she's better. And the reason why is because you don't have to worry about reviving people if they're taking 75% reduced damage. And like most games or most fights, somebody's dying in 3 to 4 turns anyways. And if you're reducing your chance of getting killed, that honestly is huge. You don't even need to revive.
Yep. And one last thing I want to say is on her basic, she hits pretty hard for a healer. Like, I'm actually surprised that she does what she does. And I'll read it real quick. She deals 200% of magic damage to an enemy. Deals an additional 14% of magic damage for each stack of feather on Roxy. So the more feathers she has, the more damage she's doing. And it's quite a bit. 14% for 1 stack is quite a bit. And she removes 1 stack of feather from Roxy when she uses it. That's not great because you want to keep them on there. But so if you got quite a bit of, if you just put all the feathers on her, she'll be doing quite a bit of damage on. She won't. She kind of dies quickly if they target her. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with putting feathers on her. She'll be hitting harder and she won't die as quick.
And I believe they also increase her healing too. Yeah, but I think it's funny because, like, let's say you're going against a team that's actually like really squishy, like a elf team. I would say they're actually like one of the squishier teams compared to everyone else. I think pandas are super hard to kill. Orcs can be super hard to kill. But if you're going against a high damage elf team and you really need to burst somebody down, you can throw feathers on her real fast and just smack her with a basic. That's like 400% damage.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And not a lot of healers can do that. And one last thing I want to mention is just if you use her healing move, her A2, she spreads feathers out to the whole team evenly. So I don't know how you want to use that, but do you want to wait till people are losing health to use it, or do you want to spread it out faster? I don't know. How do you use that?
I would say you want to spread them out as quickly as possible, because you can keep dumping out more feathers constantly.
Yep.
If you have a lot of speed on her, you're constantly dumping a ton of feathers out. You want to keep getting those spread out throughout the group, and that's just less damage everyone's taking.
All right, man. Anything else you want to say about her?
I think that's it.
All right, let's move on, folks. Coming up in the top 3, number 3, we have Boardwind. So, Boardwind, he has a lot of cool stuff going on, and this is why I think he's underrated. Just recently, I realized this man can remove buffs with his basic. So let's look at his basic real quick. So at a level 6, he's dealing 300% physical damage, which isn't bad. Consumes 20% charge. The charge thing is complicated. We don't need to get into that. But for every 1% charge consumed, he gains a 5% chance to remove one random buff. So, the higher your charge, the more likely you're going to remove a buff. But it doesn't seem like a problem for me. I got high potency on him, and he seems to remove it probably 85 to 90% of the time he's removing a buff. But if you add your level 7 to it, he's taking 2 random buffs, which in Dragon Champions is a lot. Like, there's not anyone that does more than 2 or 3 removing buffs. So that's pretty awesome, and on a basic. The only other person I can think of that removes 2 buffs on a basic is Mordoon. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing I think about the most is, well, first of all, he pairs great with Zappy. Zappy's not underrated. Everyone knows how good she is, but these two are one of the best pairs in the game. And so what you want to do is you want to do his AoE here first, and then Zappy does her AoE after that, and you just start demolishing people. But his AoE deals 340% physical damage to all enemies. It consumes 25% charge, and for every 5% charge consumed, it inflicts armor decrease and damage decrease to a random target. And that's with a 7. So you're taking down their armor, you're taking down their damage, and that's the whole team. That right there is pretty huge, just by himself. But then you have Zappy going next turn and doing an AoE and dazing everybody, and that AoE hits really hard. So his armor decrease sets Zappy up just to start demolishing folks. And not only do you take their health down by a lot with Zappy's move, but you're dazing everybody too. So these two together are just like a 1-2 punch combo. Like, you really can't underestimate these two when you're going up against them. You got anything you want to say about him, buddy?
I think a lot of people sleep on dwarves in general, though. Mm-hmm. I think because they're leaderless right now. I think everyone's like really not messing with dwarves because they don't really want to mess with the whole charge mechanic.
Yep.
And but I do agree. I think his kit is absolutely insane. And to add a side note to what you were talking about when it came to basic dispels, mm-hmm. You're gonna hate me bringing up this character, by the way. But Diesel Rog,
the dude,
Diesel Rog, he actually has the best dispel in the game, downright the best. If he crits, he removes 2 buffs from a target.
Okay.
But if he's with goblins, it adds 2 more, so he can remove 8 buffs from one target with his basic if he crits.
I didn't know that because I think 98% of the population probably doesn't have him geared, so I wasn't aware of that. But I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't know that. So that might actually be somebody
it's so awful that nobody touches them. So, but yeah, he is literally the best basic in the game, but people just don't touch him. But the thing with Boardwind is his kit's actually good compared to Diesel Rug.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I agree with you on that one.
Also, he's so good around getting around taunts. Yeah. Like, when I'd be watching you watching you do Battlegrounds, I don't know how many times he saved you of getting around taunts.
Yep. And
every time.
And he's one of the best ones to get around Salvador. And I think it's just because I'm using my basics so often with him that eventually you have to get around Salvador. If you don't have a dispel against Salvador, you've already lost. So he really helps me.
I think why he works so well against Pride though is because most tanks when they taunt, they give themselves armor increase, tenacity, all this other stuff. But with Salvador, he doesn't really apply buffs to himself. Yeah. So whenever he taunts, he has very little buffs on him. So it's very easy for you to remove the taunt off of him. That explains why he's such a good counter to Pride. But if most people started rocking with Roxy, I wonder if that would affect the removal on the taunt. But
most definitely. And I don't know how great he would do against like Centurion or something, because those guys put crazy buffs on themselves. And like you said, you put Roxy with 5 stacks of feathers. Well, I'll just sit there and keep removing feathers and no taunt. And the same goes with Mega Wheel. Like Mega Wheel is a pain in the butt to dispel because he stacks up those, I don't know what they're called, his unique stacks. And I'll just sit there. Yeah, and I'll just keep removing those and not his taunt. But that's for a whole nother conversation. But anything else you want to say about Boardwind?
No, I think that's it, man.
All right, guys, moving on. All right, guys, only a couple left. Number 2, we have Pigwall. Go ahead, my friend.
Oh, Pigwall's so frustrating, man. Like, he's the epitome of he either does something for you and literally wins you the game, or he does absolutely nothing.
Yep. That's his only flaw. Man. His only flaw is being squishy.
Yeah, like, man, I was fighting a Pigwall in our arena team not too long ago. No, it was an arena team. It was in Tower. But after getting past all this ability block stuff, and he would just kill me. he would just two-shot. He would like one-shot 2 of my people, and it was the most frustrating stuff in the world.
Yeah, same here.
And he does so much damage, even if he's not geared that well. That's the thing that was like mind-boggling me, because like the guy was like 16,000 power on his Pigwall, and he was like doing 20k damage. 20k crits. I was like, what is going on?
yeah, and I slept on this guy. He is underrated. Even I underrated him, and I don't know if he got better with a rework or not. I haven't used him either way, and I just took him to gear 11. I'm about to take him to gear 12 because what you just said, I didn't think he was that good. I didn't hear about anyone else talking about him except like some in-game players. That's it. But when I went up against him, if you didn't get him killed in 2 turns, he's wiping your entire team out. And I don't care what team you're using. And maybe it's kind of broken. I don't know. But like you just said, the damage he puts out is mind-boggling. And you would never think it would come from him. And I just can't describe how much damage he puts out. I don't know who the best damage dealer is in the game, but he's one of the best, for sure.
Oh, I think it's because when he goes in the battle stance or battle mode, whatever it's called, his next ability is a guaranteed crit.
That's huge. That's
so you don't need to stack crit chance. You literally just stack crit damage on him, and then you get like 250 to 300%, and he just one shots everyone. And the best part about it is taunt does not do anything. Like taunt nothing.
Yeah.
So your tank is almost meaningless, and like you can't do anything about it. If you don't kill him in the first like 2 or 3 rounds, you're literally going to lose the game.
I was just about to say that too. If you see this guy on the battlefield, kill him as soon as possible. And it's pretty easy to do, but I don't know. You go up against a gear 12 or gear 13, it may be over before it's even started, because a gear 13 anybody is going to be really tough for you to kill. So I would be scared to go up against a gear 13 Pigwall.
He's really slept on. Extremely slept on. I think goblins in general, there's a lot of good characters that are actually pretty slept on. It's just, they require some kind of combo. Like Old Lore requires a certain combo. But he actually pumps out pretty insane damage.
Oh, you get Old Lore with the right team, he'll one-shot people. Old Lore, to me, one of the worst characters in the game, will one-shot people if you get him in the right goblin comp.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, man. And goblins are snaky.
And so they're kind of like the one we were talking about with the pandas, where you can do so much with them, It's really interesting because there's a lot of cool comps you can do that do different things.
I think they're so restricted when it comes to is it Murdoch? They absolutely need him, and I feel like they're so limited on what they can do because they absolutely need him to be able to function.
That is true.
And I think that's their only restraint. But you throw a Pigwall in there, and if he survives for 3 rounds, you just win.
Yeah, you've won. Oh. You have to kill. You have to kill him. Like, I cannot describe. Go up against one, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, guys, that's Sergeant Pigwall. All right, boys and girls, this is it. What you've all been waiting for this whole entire time. At number 1, we have Nighty-L. Diz, what do you think about Nighty-L?
I know people are going to be like, what? How is she underrated? Okay, the thing is her kit, everyone's all like, pair her with Soleus. Pair her with, keep them with the Soleus team. A lot of people forget her leadership is actually insanely strong.
Let me read it real quick, and then you continue what you're saying. Her leadership is the accuracy of all allied elves increased by 20%. They have a 20% chance for each living mage or healer in the party to remove 1 buff from the target. Upon landing a critical hit, they remove 2 buffs instead of 1. So go ahead, bud.
So, a lot of people have their certain counters to Pride, but I actually think her leadership smacks Pride.
Yes.
Yes. Like, it absolutely destroys Pride. Because we were just talking not too long ago that Salvador really doesn't apply that many buffs to himself. Mm-hmm. You throw her with an elf team as a leader, and he can't get any buffs. And it also removes Still Shell. Keep that in mind.
Yes.
So
huge.
And then on top of that, so she gets 20% accuracy. A lot of people forget if you combined her with Sharp also increases accuracy. Yeah, I honestly think her with Sharp, you're hitting everything. You're not missing. You're not getting dodged. You're landing all your stuff.
And so you'd want to get as much crit chance going, right, on your team?
Yeah. You want to get a lot of crit chance. You want to throw her with a lot of mages. So this is going to sound like a really odd team, but you throw her like with Felia and Singeal, and then because they're all mages, well, you got Singeal that could throw out blind. And he's dispelling if he crits.
Yeah.
And then, like, that's super annoying.
Oh, no. I think that's the optimum team, is having, like, if you can spare Titania on an IDL team, put Titania, Singeal, Phalia, and I don't know. Who would you pick as the 5th for that?
I think the 5th is really flexible.
I think you could put, like, Dilman or Telios, so you have some Mark Death going. So you can get even more chance of getting around a taunt?
I would say Sharp. And the reason why I say Sharp is because he applies increased crit chance to everyone.
Which is fine, because if you can get use out of a more crappier character, then that's huge. So, but I think the core is you definitely want Singeal in there, because he helps out Phalia at the same time, as well as what you said. Blinds, dispels, heals. He's not the best character by himself, but he can be a pain in the ass with the Nighty-L team, for sure.
And then combined with Titania, and Titania gets more dodge per mage in the party.
Yep.
I could be wrong. And then if it's an elf mage, it's even more. I could be wrong, but that team, honestly, me thinking about it, sounds insanely strong.
So, and that's just her leadership. I mean, she still has a good kit.
We're not even talking about her kit. That's just her leadership alone.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just sleeping on her leadership. When you think of Nighty-L, you think of her damage increase, and you think of her combined with Soleus. You don't think of her actual leadership for the elves. I don't see a lot of people doing it. Every time you see her, she's with the human team.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's just go through most of her kit, because every move has something cool that she does. So her passive, she's removing 2 debuffs from herself and Soleus at the end of her turn. So she's cleansing herself, and if you have her paired with Soleus, she's cleansing you and Soleus. So that's pretty big. When you're beginning out, you probably have her with Soleus, and that's not a bad thing, because her and Soleus' synergy are some of the best in the game. So I just want to say that you're not wrong for putting her with Soleus, but you definitely want to eventually evolve into her having her own team. And if Soleus is in the party, 2 buffs are removed instead of 1. So I guess with her passive, she's removing a buff, and with her leadership, she's removing buffs. Correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So she's removing even more, which I didn't realize. So just her passive, so her just being on your team, she's removing buffs. So that's huge. And anyone who's played this long enough knows any dispel is precious in this game because there's not enough, and there's only characters stacking more and more buffs every time a new one comes out. So any kind of dispel you can get going is precious. So that alone is huge. Just her passive. So she doesn't have to be in her leadership. So that's cool. Her A3, it's a support move, and she restores 25% turn meter to herself, and she's applying damage increase and potency increase to all allies. Damage increase is good, especially for an elf team. They're based on damage. So that's a pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Now her A2 I love. Her A2 hits hard. At level 7, it's dealing 510% magic damage. That's pretty good. I wouldn't use it on a tank because it doesn't do too much to a tank, but this can hit hard. And on top of that, it's ability block and tenacity decrease. So I guess you could use it on a tank. It'll give them tenacity decrease, but I don't recommend doing that. But the ability block is what I love about that. It hits hard, and it gives you an ability block. And lastly, her basic. Her basic's pretty cool. At level 7, it's dealing, a percentage of magic damage, but it has a 70% chance to deal shield piercing damage. That means it's going to bypass shield and just take away the health anyways. So that's pretty cool too.
I think her passive, her leadership is just being so slept on. I think the combo with her and Soleus is so good that a lot of people forget how good her leadership actually is.
Yep.
And you literally throw her with Sharp with a bunch of mages that can crit very often. Not only does she put ability block and tenacity increase, but if that ability crits, she just removes 2 or 3 buffs off the target.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's huge.
Not only can they not play the game afterwards, but they're also they lost all their buffs.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think her leadership is absolutely insane, and how frustrating do you get when everyone's dodging your attacks? And I tell you all the time.
Yeah.
90-0, bro.
Yep. And going up against a decent 90-0 team in Battlegrounds is one of the harder teams that are very frustrating. Very frustrating. And you got to play it right. But, even if she didn't have this leadership, she would still be on this list, but she wouldn't be number 1. And that leadership makes her number 1 because she's not just a counter to Pride. She's a counter to a lot of things. I don't do this, but people like Wargul have said he can counter Soleus teams with a 90L lead. So she can really counter a lot of great teams.
Oh, because she could shut them down with the ability block and stuff. So, yeah, 100%.
Yep, I agree. And maybe you put, like I said, like a Teleus or something on there, or a Velman, and if you can get a Mark of Death on the right person, that helps too. Dead.
Yeah.
Yep. So, man, anything else you want to say about?
I think that's it. We have our honorable mentions. I'd say Sharp is in there, and I also say Mega Will. Mega Will is honestly a really beefy tank, and he does a ton of damage.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when I was talking about him earlier, right then and there, I thought, well, maybe we should have put him on there. But we put Mar. I think he should have probably been 10, but we put Mar on there, and you guys go out and get Mar. Don't forget about him. I'm always going to give you crap about that. I don't know why. I don't know why I do that. I just got to. No hard feelings, though.
That's all right. Whenever we fight each other and Mar kills your entire team, I'll be there. I'll be watching it.
Well, I might be catching up with you on free-to-play. We might eventually play against each other.
Oh, 100%. I feel like we will. And I enjoyed this. I love that we did this. Unfortunately, I think the video's lasting forever.
Yeah, it always does. Yeah, we're at an hour right now, so.
Yeah. I'm going to keep going because there's more underrated characters. Like I said, there's Mega Will, there's Sharp, and I'm sure there's more that we haven't really talked about.
Well, hey, that's for another video, man. And this won't be the last video you do. We'll do some more here soon, okay?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I feel like we really deep dived in a lot of these underrated characters, and hopefully people start using them.
I agree, man. I had a blast with you, and we'll do it again soon. I really appreciate you coming by, brother, and I love talking to you, man. So we'll do this again soon.
I appreciate you having me, Bones.
No problem, brother. All right, guys, everyone out there, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the love. I just appreciate everything you guys do, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.